welcome in. In this series, one in-game day is all the time we have in which to explore a world before being banished to a new one, making it very important to go into each new world with at least one primary goal in mind. These goals appear in the bottom left-hand corner at the start of each new world, and usually feature in at least some of the commentary. However, these aren't the only tasks we're trying to complete. Quietly, taking place in the background of these primary goals, we have some slower and less world-specific secondary goals, all of which are just as important in our grand plan for ultimately reaching and defeating Moonlord. So, before we jump into gameplay, I wanted to take stock and have a look at how far we've progressed with these goals thus far in the series. Currently, our hit points are sitting at 120 out of a possible 400. These can be increased 20 points at a time by finding and consuming heart crystals, which we will come across randomly whilst exploring underground. As our HP increases, we will start to find that lesser healing potions, which can be used to restore 50 points every minute, will no longer be enough to keep us healthy. Fortunately, we can upgrade to the 100 points per minute regular healing potions, for which we will need a good supply of glowing mushrooms in order to craft. These mushrooms spawn in their own underground biome, which we are again hoping to randomly happen across. Next on our list is inventory slots. We currently have 50, but I would like 90 since we never have any space. We can gain an extra 40 slots via the piggy bank, which we can simply buy from the merchant when he spawns. The pickaxe we are currently using is the worst in the game. With only 35% power, it's slow and very limited in the types of blocks it is able to break. Any pickaxe would be an upgrade, but we're going for the Crimtane pickaxe, which we can craft from materials dropped from the brain of Cthulhu, who we began fighting at the end of last episode. For this stage of the game, our mobility is already pretty high, but there are still a good few upgrades to uncover. During exploration, we're looking to find 4 more rubies, so as to craft a grappling hook. From golden chests, we want to loot a suspicious looking eye, a boss summon that drops us the ability to dash. We're also on the lookout for 2 more crafting components, with which we can upgrade our boots. Ivy chests in the underground jungle have a chance of rewarding us with the Anklet of the Wind, and ice chests in the underground tundra a pair of ice skates. Whilst searching ivy chests, there is also a chance of us finding our first fishing pole, which will be essential in unlocking crucial items later in the playthrough. Finally, let's talk about weapons and armour. Ideally, we should always have 2 different sets of armour. One which offers heavy defensive stats that can protect us whilst exploring, and one with hefty offensive bonuses to help us obliterate bosses as quickly as possible. For storing our inactive set, we'll have the armour vanity slots, which impose the appearance of any armour placed in them on top of the stats from the armour in the armour slots. In order to hopefully not overcomplicate this, the armour we're using is whichever one it doesn't look like the character is wearing. Fortunately, weapons are considerably simpler. We want a close-ranged weapon for enclosed encounters whilst exploring, and a long-ranged weapon so that we can stay safe and keep our distance whilst fighting bosses. The issue with our current long-ranged weapon is sustainability. We have less than 100 knives left, and I have no intention of mining any more desert fossil. Okay, perfect, we're all caught up. Let's run the intro, and we can jump back in where we left off, cheesing the brain of Cthulhu in the depths of the Crimson. In this Terraria series, I am limited to only spend the duration of one in-game day on a world before it is permanently deleted and replaced with a new one, resetting any progress made in that time toward unlocking a final boss, the Moonlord. Defeating Moonlord is the ultimate goal of the series, and will need to be achieved on a fresh, unseeded world within 24 minutes of generation. Fortunately, stats, gear, and items tied directly to the character persist between worlds, and as such, we get a chance to prepare. We are aiming to complete this challenge in the least number of total worlds possible. So, this setup was pretty much perfect for Phase 1, but we're not going to be sticking around long enough to see how ill-suited it is for Phase 2. Okay. Now that we have all the ore and tissue samples we need for our pickaxe upgrade, we are going to need to head underground to grab some stone so that we can craft a furnace and smelt up our bars. The specific reason that we didn't stay to finish off the Brain of Cthulhu is that knockback plays a crucial role in survivability for Phase 2, and our knives don't deal any. We were not going to win. But, this way at least, we save about 30 seconds. Now we want to head as deep underground as we can, and find ourselves some lava pools. We'll definitely take a heart crystal. This also seems as good a spot as any to start crafting. So, at long last, we can finally get rid of our starting pickaxe and upgrade to something that isn't terrible. Of course. We just got very unlucky on the modifier for this new, not terrible pickaxe. So, although we can still use it to mine blocks that we couldn't before, we're not going to be able to do so quite as quickly as I'd like. On a positive note, our next pickaxe upgrade isn't too far away. So, this chest is rigged to explode and humiliate us if we attempt to open it. There is the option to deactivate the traps and then loot it safely, but we've not quite got enough time to commit to this process. So, unfortunately, we're going to be leaving it behind us. Oh, and it's always worth protecting your nerd holes with a roof, so that mobs can't fall down and stunlock us. Our goal at the moment is to gather some obsidian, which we'll need as a secondary for our next armour set. Hence why we're digging down to find lava. We're going to need about 100 blocks, which are created when lava is rapidly cooled using water. This does consume both a block of lava and a block of water. Not even close. So, good news. We've just found enough rubies for us to craft a grappling hook, which means we're going to be able to fling ourselves around like we're in Attack on Titan. I do enjoy a good simple task like mining obsidian. The world can be a very complicated place, filled with big unanswerable questions and overwhelming existential dread. It's nice to be able to focus in, to stay grounded and not have to think about it. I am mining obsidian. Don't forget to wash up. Not now. I am mining obsidian. You should head to bed. It's 3 AM and you have work tomorrow. Not yet. I am mining obsidian. Quick, get out of there! The house is on fire! Not now. I am mining obsidian. Okay, so maybe what I'm describing there isn't grounding myself. Sounds an awful lot more like escapism, now that I think about it. But I stand by the notion that, when confronted with the endless abyss of life's meaninglessness, it can be quite nice to be able to answer the question of, what's the point of it all? With, well, we need obsidian to craft hellstone armour. Which is, like, really good. It's got high defense. I'm a big fan of taking the little wins where you can. We'll first make an obsidian skull, which allows us to stand on burning blocks without incurring fire damage. This isn't going to be super important for us, but there's no real reason not to make one. We've no specific goal for the rest of the world, just hoping to get lucky finding underground loot. I will warn you though, I don't particularly strive at wandering around aimlessly. My brain very much seems to be wired to depend on structure and familiarity, consume as much information as is available, and hyperfixate on things. Once you have a deeper understanding of something, you can turn your attention to optimizing and improving it, and that forward momentum becomes a slippery slope, at least for me. The pursuit of perfection will usually lead to one of two outcomes. A never-ending cycle of criticism and refinement, which, with every rotation, exacerbates feelings of self-loathing and inadequacy, until finally the project is so imbued with your hate and negativity, you discard it, no longer able to bear its existence. Or an insurmountable hurdle at the offset, making even the first step feel impossible and pointless. One of the driving forces of this series was to renounce perfection. Releasing episode 1 in particular was a huge milestone to this end. When I finally published that first episode, I was really unhappy with it. All I can see is its countless flaws, but I am genuinely so glad that I was able to put it out there. Something is better than nothing. And even if I know that I can do better, not everything has to be the best that you can do. Things are allowed to be a bit naff. Our video clip for this world is named Perfectly Hell Adjusted. And what you are seeing is the result of the Don't Dig Up special seed. World generation has been flipped on its head, and we've been spawned deep underground, in the bowels of hell, which look a bit different from normal, as there isn't usually a big island of trees down here. So, now that we've gathered up a few fire blossoms, we can craft ourselves some obsidian skin potions, which will make us immune to fire and lava damage whilst under their influence, and will make it very easy to mine up all the hellstone we need for our upgrades. Just to reiterate from last episode, if you're not watching this video as second monitor content, or as white noise to fall asleep to, you're doing it wrong. And as recompense for your heinous actions, you must now endure 6 minutes of literally nothing happening. But don't worry, it will be sped up, so I'm hoping that helps keep it interesting for you. And also, thanks. Those animations did take a considerable amount of time, plus I do put a lot of effort into how the transitions and effects in these episodes look, so it's definitely appreciated to know that somebody is seeing them. The animations are certainly getting there in terms of quality, and it's becoming harder and harder to distinguish them from actual gameplay, which ultimately is my plan. I still don't know if this challenge is actually possible or not, but I do know that if I get good enough at animating authentic looking gameplay, that won't matter, although it would probably be far more time efficient to just get good. Okay, so, in order to process our hellstone ore into bars, we require a Hellforge, a furnace upgrade which we can find down here in the underworld. So, this is a pretty out there thing to say, but if biomes in Terraria were ice cream flavours, in terms of taste, hell would be one of the best. And no, I will not be elaborating further. Right, now we can craft ourselves Hellstone armour, which offers amazing defensive stats for this stage of the game, in addition to an extra 17% melee damage, if we can get our hands on a decent sword. And we just hit the legendary modifier for our molten pickaxe, which boasts 100% pickaxe power, and means we shouldn't need to worry about an upgrade for a decent while. And just a quick reminder that since we're storing the fossil armour in our vanity slots, it's going to look like we're wearing that instead of our new molten armour. But that's just cosmetic. We've also crafted ourselves a new bow, in the form of the Molten Fury, which deals very high range damage and is very sustainable, since we only need wood and some stone blocks to craft a buttload of ammo. If we manage to find a snow biome, we can mine some ice and craft some frost arrows for even more damage. It is an excellent weapon that we will primarily be using as a light source. So, something that I always find kind of interesting with Steam games is taking a look at the achievements and seeing what percentage of players have completed each of them. For example, only 86% of players have chopped down their first tree, and only 61% have crafted their first workbench. What percentage of players have killed the Wall of Flesh, Terraria's equivalent of finishing the tutorial? The answer is about 40%. How many players have made it to the end and defeated Moonlord? About 25%. Only 28% of players have crafted a molten pickaxe. We will take the heart statue, as it can be used to boost health regen in boss arenas. Basically, we'll be able to wire it up so that it drops health pickups during boss fights. There is a good chance that once we're deep into the challenge, little boosts like this are going to become very useful. especially since we'll always be duking it out in hastily built arenas. So, since we just found some gold ore, we can brew ourselves some Splunker potions, which are fantastic, as they cause chests, hearts, and other loot to glow, making them exceptionally more visible and far easier to locate. Like that. That's also better healing potion sorted, although we don't yet have the HP for that to really matter. The healing potions, by the way, definitely taste like Calpol. Obviously, not the gross orange one. The good stuff. I'm pretty sure that what I'm saying there is that Calpol tastes so good because it's made of glowing subterranean mushrooms. Which does make sense to me, and explains a lot. Loving how many heart crystals there are around here. I can see the living wood chest to the bottom right of us, but we're going to be ignoring it, as there's no chance of it containing any loot that is still useful to us. But we will still keep checking golden chests, as they offer us an opportunity at a lava charm, or at a suspicious looking eye to summon the Eye of Cthulhu with. Here's a fun Cthulhu fact, which I find particularly amusing. Cthulhu has featured in an official comic book where they are defeated by none other than Godzilla. And I think that is excellent. So we just stepped on a pressure plate that I didn't see, which is why there is now lava flooding down from the ceiling. I don't really know what to do about that. Did you know that cows can only walk up and not down stairs? It's to do with how their knees bend. But like, if that were a mechanic in a video game, someone would have used it to generate infinite money or something by now. We should get on that. Here are some ice blocks like we were hoping for, so when we get chance, we'll craft some stronger arrows. Snow is very much the answer to the question, what if sand, but cold? And ice would be the answer to the question, what if everything was a slide? You know, if slides ever actually worked properly. I seem to remember them just always hurting my bum. Okay, web-covered chests. These have a guaranteed drop of the worst item in the game. It's a grappling hook called the Web Slinger. It can fire out 8 hooks, one at a time. They're all tiny, and if you fire out one to move, the other 7 will keep you in place. Terrible item. It's called the Web Slinger. It should let you swing around like Spider-Man. Like, actually swing. Not just get pulled directly toward the hook. The ice boomerang definitely isn't incredible or anything like that, but it is better than the boomerang we have right now, so we'll definitely be taking it. But yeah, that's how I'd fix Terraria's worst item. I'd make it like the grapple from the game Starbound, which is otherwise considered a worse Terraria, despite many major differences, and it heading in an entirely unique direction. All I know is I played it in early beta and quit when I found out that my flame sword still worked underwater. An issue I seem more than happy to ignore in this game. It seemed important at the time. I also kept drowning in Starbound, because I was expecting water to behave in the same way that it does in Terraria. But it does not. It more closely mimics real life, and I couldn't comprehend it. Good, we found ice skates. We will need them eventually for our boots upgrade. This also means we shouldn't need to return to the snow biome for any reason in the future. I am definitely pleased about this fact. The underground jungle, however, is certainly a different story. It seems the devs have a favourite biome. Welcome to the Drunk Seed, where everything is just a little bit broken and glitchy. Worlds generated with this seed are the embodiment of the "Go Home You're Drunk" meme. On this world, we're also treated to the soundtrack from Terraria Otherworlds, which is the game's cancelled spin-off. The first thing we're doing is building a pair of houses. One to shut the party girl up, since she's the guide for this world, and one to attract the merchant, so that we can finally buy a piggy bank and sort out our inventory. Once that's done, we're going to make our way over to the dungeon for our next couple of unlocks. And this is why we're on a drunken seed. Ordinarily, the dungeon entrance generates on the world's surface, with an NPC which, when spoken to, will transform into a giant skeleton boss, who needs to be defeated before the player is granted access to the underground levels. If the player attempts to enter these underground levels before defeating the boss, a near unkillable version will spawn, fly through the walls, and one-hit the player. What is special about dungeons when generated with a drunken seed is that the entrance spawns underground, and allows us into the first two rooms without incurring the wrath of the dungeon's guardian. Now, to be clear, we are currently well enough equipped to defeat this boss, but since the killable version can only be summoned at night, we won't be wasting our time with him. I was once convinced by my friends to waste an entire 3 hours and 15 minutes at the cinema watching Avatar: The Way of Water with them. Not that I'm complaining. I like spending time with my friends, and I did manage to get some pretty good progress in my little Sudoku book. So, I was happy. But the film did suck. Excellent. This big orange tree indicates that we have found the dungeon entrance. So, let's head inside. We're looking to find a locked golden chest, which only generates in the underground jungle, and as such, we'll only have access to it because of our special seed. From the chest, we're hoping for 2 items: a sword called the Maramusa, which we have a 1 in 7 roll at, and a shadow key, which we have a 1 in 3 chance at. Well, that was lucky. Except it wasn't. Remember, we reach a checkpoint at the end of every world, and resort back to that checkpoint in the result of a death. Though we cannot use pre-explored seeds in this challenge, we can brute force our luck by running drunk seeds from our last checkpoint until we find one with the drops that we are looking for. This isn't my first attempt after reaching that last checkpoint. Hopefully that makes sense. Anyway, back to our loot. As you are about to see, the Maramusa is an exceptionally enjoyable weapon to use, and has the added bonus of being used as a crafting material for an even more powerful sword later down the line. The shadow key is also crucial, as we'll be using it to obtain the weapon needed to take on our first major boss, the Wall of Flesh, like from the intro animation. So, why haven't we left the dungeon yet? Because we still need to gather some bones, which are needed to craft our next offensive armor set. Bones are only dropped by mobs in the underground dungeon, and are again usually locked behind defeating the dungeon's guardian. But we are able to bypass this via the drunk seed. The clip name for this world, by the way, is Making a Bone Call. As you can see, we haven't too much space to work with. If we go any deeper into the dungeon, we will be insta-killed, which is why I've blocked off the passageway. I'm doing my best to mine out a small corridor, so that we can increase the amount of space in the room that is off-screen, which is where mobs spawn. This definitely isn't the cleanest, safest, or most effective mob farm we could hope for, but it does seem to be offering us a decent yield for the time we've invested. The Maramusa and Molten Armor combo is feeling very strong right now. And 157 bones is enough for us to forge our armour. But we still need a few more cobwebs before we can start crafting. The piggy bank works like a chest that can only be placed down on tables or platforms. However, unlike a chest, it can be picked up and moved around, even whilst full of items, offering us relatively quick access to 40 additional slots for the price of one. We are going to be using it to store things we want to keep, but don't need immediate access to, such as our potion ingredients and boss arena statues. Inventory management whilst under a time crunch is absolutely one of the more stressful features of this challenge. In a regular playthrough, I like to trash or ignore most items and materials, only taking them if and when I need them. In this challenge we are not granted that luxury, and it's rather unpleasant. Okay then, let's go find some cobwebs and craft ourselves some ranged armour. For anyone who hasn't tried blindfolded archery, you really don't know what you're missing. I think that the answer to all of life's great mysteries and deep unanswered questions can probably be found hidden in children's TV shows. I'm not saying that that's a good thing. I find it genuinely infuriating to know that every hard-fought answer that I find to any of life's seemingly endless and inescapable hardships was probably dealt with quickly and efficiently in a 15-minute Sesame Street segment. It's like how when you give advice to a friend and all the solutions seem far clearer and easier from a third-person perspective, to how they do when you're the one being affected by the issue. It's the big difference between knowing the path and walking it. I needed to offset the archery joke. So, this Necro armor grants us 15% additional range damage, and 10% additional critical strike chance, and will definitely be very useful for the rest of the pre-hard mode bosses. With all the time we have remaining, we're going to head to the underground jungle to loot some ivy chests, to get a head start on what we'll be doing in our next world. I do of course hope you are enjoying the series and the episodes so far. I am having an absolute blast making them both. Although, I will admit that sections of the video like this, which make for prime opportunities for insightful and meaningful commentary, have been causing me a bit of trouble. So, my reason for creating this series is not that I feel that I've anything terribly important or poignant that needs to be said, but just that I enjoy the production process and feel good when I see that somebody liked a thing that I've made. Although, when I'm posting a 40-minute video of near non-stop talking, but where I never actually say anything, that starts to feel like maybe it could cause some disappointment. If somebody learns to play an instrument in order to recreate their favourite song or music piece, would that be considered by most people as a lesser form of expression when compared to them writing or composing their own piece? Are pre-explored or unoriginal thoughts and experiences even worth sharing? Or does it just cause people to become bored and disinterested? This is another one of those exploding chests that we'll be ignoring, by the way. I think that it's okay to enjoy residing in the familiar. That sometimes a lack of excitement or push for personal growth can be a positive. Maybe you're already pretty great, and we can just sit and play Terraria for a bit, because it's fun, and that's enough. With this heart crystal, we have reached 400 hit points, which for now is the cap. And hive blocks are cursed. When mined, there is a high chance of them spawning bees, which will not only go ahead and try to poison us, but worse than this, they'll knock us back, and make mining the blocks unbearably slow. We are going to do our best to navigate around this hive, so that we can get back to moving quickly. We will not be attempting a 45-second queen bee kill today, thank you. This is far too much progress to be throwing out the window. Although we cannot consume it for any extra hit points, we do still want to pick up one last crystal heart that we'll be able to utilise in a few worlds' time. And as always, we'll be attempting to make progress until the very last second, even when it's pretty clear that we can't. That beehive really shut us down at the end there. This clip is called Cheese is a Kind of Meat. To begin, we're going to build some houses, as I require some NPCs for a secret plan. Unfortunately, we also need to return to the jungle, since, despite now having all the heart crystals we need, we still have unfinished business there. In addition to the list of chest loot we're on the lookout for, we're also on the hunt for a bunch of jungle-exclusive crafting materials, which are primarily dropped by the mobs there. These will be used for sword upgrades later down the line. We also require a bucket of lava for this secret project that we'll both reveal and enact in the next video. We experienced a fair few mean lag spikes and some latency whilst building these houses, which were both very much throwing off my block accuracy. I'm hoping they don't continue on into the hostile jungle. On the topic of jungles, I saw an interesting documentary the other day, which was examining the behavioural differences between bears who were born in the jungle and those born in forests. In general, jungle species such as the spectacled or sloth bear exhibit far more civil and social behaviours than can be seen in breeds such as the American grizzly. The documentary followed a particularly polite and well-mannered spectacled bear as he returned to Peru to be reunited with his family for the first time since he was a cub. I think his little red hat was probably my favourite part of the whole thing. Far more stylish than those silly green hats grizzly bears are known for wearing. In our search, we'll be opening most chests that aren't out of our way. But our focus is ivy chests, as we still need our fishing pole, anklet of the wind, and a suspicious looking eye. We also want to always be moving downwards, so that we can fill our lava bucket. There isn't any special or specific reason that we've waited until now to fill our bucket. Ultimately, it's just difficult to think that far ahead, and to keep track of so many things at once. Fortunately, it isn't going to cost us any meaningful time penalty. Excellent, we've managed to find an anklet of the wind. Excellent for our later boot upgrade, but also makes for a slight immediate upgrade over our aglet. An annoying quirk of combat is that Terraria punishes you for having the high ground, and there are very few weapons you can effectively attack downwards with, especially when moving and at close range. None of that is to say that this wasn't a misplay, but with the style of fast, direct gameplay and exploration our challenge necessitates, we can definitely expect to find ourselves in more of these situations. But, as you saw, molten armour is more than suitable at tanking a couple of misplays. Underwater chests are usually rubbish, but there's a 1 in 10 chance at something we may need later, so they are still worth our time. Okay, the crafting materials we're after. We need the vine drops from these man-eaters, lots of glowing spores, and stingers from the hornets that are flying around. And again, all of these are crafting components for a giga-powerful sword we'll want later on in the playthrough. There is almost always an objectively correct way to do anything in Terraria, as there is in most games. Certain weapons that perform particularly effectively against specific bosses, or certain tools that are able to maximise time efficiency if obtained early, that sort of thing. I'm not somebody that believes that striving for perfect efficiency can ruin a game, but you absolutely can optimise the fun out of one. Especially in games like Terraria, where optimal strategy can utterly trivialise otherwise fun and engaging challenges or encounters. Oh, that's the fishing pole we wanted. Glad to get that checked off our list. I struggle to play Terraria anymore without at least some level of additional rules or restrictions. And if you've been watching, you can confirm that this isn't because I'm overwhelmingly good or exceptionally skilled at the game. But I do have decent knowledge of the meta. And that's all you need to trivialise most of the difficulty. Through restrictions, I am able to change the meta. There still is one, but I don't know what it is yet. And my only method of finding it is trial and error, through playing the game. And I hope that you'll agree that this challenge is a good conduit to that end. We might want this star statue for later. It does for mana what the heart statue does for health. Although, the magic system has always felt a little bit undercooked for my liking. I think it could be cool if, instead of just being ranged, but with burst damage, if magic could focus more on utility and damage over time. If we could have buffs and defensive spells that grow stronger the longer you're engaged in combat, and concentration spells that dispel if the player takes damage, but that are stronger if they remain within close proximity of the enemy. Whenever I've done a mage-only playthrough in the past, I've always found myself feeling either drastically underpowered for a situation compared to the other damage types, or ridiculously overpowered, but in a way that feels repetitive and mindless. Maybe it would feel out of place in Terraria, but I think that magic should work like an ability bar style combat system, where each magic item on the hotbar acts as an ability with its own independent cooldown, and where you get to forge your own loadout of abilities, deciding between not only spells which deal damage, but ones that can be used for defense and for utility. The boomstick is a great weapon, but we don't really have any use for it right now. We will be keeping it though, in case we want an upgraded version later. Oh, that's a nice drop. I don't know if we're likely to need it at all, but the basil that we were just able to obtain provides poison immunity when equipped, so it could be worth hanging on to. Okay then, perfect. And there is our bucket of lava for next episode's secret plan. Okay, great. Thanks for sticking around and watching. That's all the gameplay I've got for you in this episode, but before the video ends, I want to offer a quick recap of the progress we've made today and take a look at where our character stats are sitting after all of that. The first big change is that we now have 400 hit points after acquiring 14 heart crystals whilst on our travels. We've upgraded our potions to heal double what they did before, and achieved a total of 90 inventory slots with the acquisition of our new piggy bank. We have 100% pickaxe power in the form of our legendary molten pickaxe, a ruby grappling hook to sling ourselves around with, and a suspicious looking eye with which we can summon the Eye of Cthulhu, who will drop us an item that grants us the ability to dash. The Anklet of the Wind and Ice Skates secures us the opportunity to upgrade our boots, and the fiberglass fishing pole, which we looted, will grant us access to some very important fishing exclusives later down the road. Our weapons and armour are also looking far stronger than they did at the episode's opening. We have Molten Armour for heavy defence, and Necro Armour for ranged offence. The Maramusa will shred any enemies that get too close, and we can use the Molten Fury to fling frost arrows in situations where we need to dominate from afar. Finally, we managed to find ourselves a bucket of lava, which we'll be using to enact a secret plan next episode, where things will really start to ramp up difficulty-wise, as we'll be taking on the Wall of Flesh. Now, go treat yourself or something. Video's over.